Peter and Lois Griffin. Has there ever been a marriage more unsettling? Although they've managed to stick together through thick and thin, the fact of the matter is there's a lot about their marriage that's really messed up. Like, insanely messed up. Between their horrible parenting skills and the numerous affairs with certain former presidents and even cardboard cutouts, it's actually shocking the two of them have managed to stay together. Let's take a closer look at their relationship and why, despite its admittedly sweeter moments, it's pretty messed up overall. But hold up a minute. Before we get started, don't forget to click that fancy schmancy subscribe button to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest content from Screen Rant.
I can see now that coming here was a huge mistake. You're hopeless, Peter.
Your feet look old.
Marriage counseling. Peter and Lois Griffin attending marriage counseling. Why does that not surprise us? Honestly, it's more surprising that it took them so long to get there in the first place. 13 seasons into the series' run, the season finale entitled Take My Wife involves Peter and Lois's first foray into the world of counseling. It's Lois who sets everything up, of course. Did you really think Peter would be the one to take point on that? The whole thing ends up backfiring when their counselor Noelle pairs all the couples up with different partners. Peter discovers that he and Quagmire's new girlfriend Kimmy get along swimmingly, which ends up making Lois extremely jealous. She even threatens to leave the counseling session, considering the whole thing a mistake. Everything works out in the end when Noelle stages a fake execution that results in Peter and Lois admitting their love for one another. The process worked, right? Well, sure, maybe, but it's more than a little disturbing that it would take Peter and Lois being led to their deaths to prompt them to admit their love for one another. Plus, it doesn't actually help them address any of the problems they've been experiencing in their marriage.
3 years it is.
3 years in prison? Oh my God, what have I done?
Lois goes to prison. It isn't difficult to imagine Lois seeking out some way to distract herself from the perils and mental turmoil brought on not only by her marriage, but the fact her infant son is actively scheming of different ways to murder her. But instead of engaging in a healthy pastime, in the season 4 episode Breaking Out Is Hard to Do, Lois discovers a love for shoplifting. When she finds she's short on cash during a trip to the grocery store, she decides to hide a ham in her purse instead of paying for it. The thrill of the experience inspires her to indulge in even larger shoplifting efforts, including the stealing of a Matisse painting, which attracts Brian's attention. Despite Brian's warnings, Lois keeps up the new hobby and winds up getting thrown in prison when she attempts to steal from an auto parts store. Peter is a total wreck without Lois. His life devolves into sitting around with a 4 o'clock shadow in his underpants. Eventually, he and the rest of the Griffin family manage to break Lois out, and Lois avoids a return trip by rescuing their friend and neighbor, Joe, who was the one who arrested her in the first place. Joe repays her by getting her sentence canceled, allowing the family to go back to their day-to-day business.
Mark my words, when you least expect it, your uppance will come.
We need to talk about Stewie. Oh, Stewie, where do we even begin with this little guy? Even though he's only 1 year old, he's got intelligence and wit beyond anyone else in the family, except maybe Brian. Since the beginning, this conniving infant has schemed countless ways to bring about Lois's demise, from lasers to grenades. It got to the point where an entire episode was devoted to the two of them killing each other. In the 2-part season 6 finale, Stewie kills Lois/Lois kills Stewie, Stewie finally succeeded in the task. In part 1, Lois and Peter go off on a cruise together, and Stewie sneaks aboard the cruise and murders Lois with a machine gun. As a result, Peter starts dating around, but hides it from the family. Naturally, he's accused of the murder, but Lois makes a surprise appearance revealing she's still alive, and that Stewie is the only one who really tried to murder her. Turns out the whole thing was a simulation, and no one was actually hurt. Still, the fact that Peter and Lois could raise such a destructive little tyke speaks volumes about the kind of home life they have. Not only that, but Peter's quick rush into the dating world suggests he couldn't wait to embrace the single life once more.
I'm sorry, Peter. I'm afraid she's got a father's libido.
Lois marries Quagmire. Quagmire is both one of the most beloved Family Guy characters as well as one of the show's most disturbed. Ever since a horrible breakup scarred him for life, the character has become obsessed with dating and hooking up with different women. His consistently odd and perverted behavior has gotten him into trouble in nearly every episode in which he appears, and he takes any opportunity he can to hit on Lois. But despite the fact that he's a total cesspool of a human being, this doesn't stop Lois from marrying him. Wait, what? Hold on. Let's back up a moment to explain. In the Season 5 episode Meet the Quagmires, Death grants Peter the opportunity to experience the single life Peter missed out on by marrying Lois. Peter decides to go back in time and make out with Molly Ringwald, which ends up creating a new future in which he's married to Molly and Lois is married to Quagmire. While Peter manages to set the timeline right again, resulting in his and Lois's ending up together, the implication that Lois would willingly choose to marry someone like Quagmire is disturbing to say the least, and it calls into question whether or not she has the best taste in men.
Boy, you are good. You are really good.
Peter's affair with Bill Clinton. That's right, people. This really happened. While Lois has had her fair share of affairs, try saying that 10 times fast, and a tendency to embrace an unusually large number of unfaithful marriage practices, not much can compare to Peter's romantic encounter with Bill Clinton. So how did it all start? In the Season 5 episode entitled Bill and Peter's Bogus Journey, former President Clinton's car breaks down outside the Griffins' household. Peter injures himself in an attempt to repair it, and during his time in the hospital, he and Bill become best buds. Lois thinks Bill is having a bad influence on Peter, but when she goes to confront President Bill Clinton, they end up sleeping together instead. Okay then. So, naturally, Lois feels horrible about what happened and tells Peter he needs to sleep with someone else so they're even. At first, Peter seeks to oblige her request with Lois's mother, but at the last moment, he decides he can't go through with it. He visits Bill to call off their friendship, but Bill ends up seducing Peter instead, and, well, you know. We're not sure what's more messed up, the fact that Lois cheated on Peter in the first place or the fact that Peter and Lois share a sleeping buddy. We'll let you be the judge.
I'm gonna be 17, you jerks!
She's the jerk.
Terrible parenting. No one would ever expect Peter or Lois to win an award for Parents of the Year, but their shoddy attempts at parenting are still pretty baffling. Where do we even start? How about the fact that in the 7th season of the show, Peter got Stewie hooked on steroids? In the episode aptly entitled Steroids, Joe's daughter Susie gets in a fight with Stewie. As a result, Peter decides to take Stewie to the gym, where a mysterious trainer offers Peter steroids for the boy. Peter injects Stewie with the drugs, and Stewie goes on a steroid-driven rampage, flaunting his new strength until the drugs wear off. And what about the episode where Lois seduces Meg's boyfriend? In the Season 8 episode, Go Stewie Go, Peter makes Lois feel insecure about her age. Lois begins hitting on Meg's boyfriend, Anthony, and eventually ends up making out with him on the couch. So not only did Lois cheat on Peter, but she betrayed her daughter's trust. 2 for the price of 1. These are just 2 examples, but there are plenty more throughout the series that further prove Peter and Lois are just as bad at being a mom and dad as they are at being married.
I got remarried.
What?
Well, it was a very difficult time.
Honey, I'm home.
Lois marries Brian. Wait a second. Really? Lois married Brian? Is there anyone on the show she hasn't been married to? How did this even happen? The marriage in question took place in the Season 4 episode Perfect Castaway. In it, Peter and his buddies go on a fishing trip at Pelican's Reef only to get caught up in a hurricane which sinks their boat. The group survives, but when Peter returns home, Lois admits she thought he was dead and, as a result, decided to marry the family dog. Eventually, Brian opts to make things easier on everyone by breaking up with Lois and encouraging her to get back together with Peter, and everything returns to normal. But here's the thing. Outside the disturbing prospect of Lois being married to her pet dog, the fact of the matter is things seem to be going well for the family, better than they ever had when she was married to Peter. Chris is doing better in school, and Meg's even managed to go out on a date. Is it weirder that Lois decided to marry her dog, or that she decided to return to a more unhealthy marriage after finally getting a taste of the stability in her life? These are the kinds of questions that Family Guy makes one ponder.
Lois Griffin has revealed to this reporter that she appeared in a pornographic movie back in the early 1980s.
Lois's dark side. Peter can be a pretty terrible husband, but Lois is no saint either. We've already mentioned Lois's run-in with the law, which ended up landing her in prison, how she's cheated on Peter multiple times, and how she's been a pretty terrible mother, going so far as to hook up with her daughter's boyfriend. Believe it or not, this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as her sketchy misdeeds go. In the episode, And I'm Joyce Kinney, we learn Lois used to be a porn star. We also see glimpses of Lois's dominatrix side in a number of episodes, including Let's Go to the Hop, Barely Legal, and Brian's Got a Brand New Bag. She goes so far as to make Peter kick her in the chest and even puts a cigarette out on her arm. She also has a reputation for dating lots of different people in her younger days, and not only did she have her aforementioned fling with former President Clinton, she's also hooked up with a number of musicians, including Kiss frontman Gene Simmons and Hall from Hall & Oates. In the episode entitled Screwed the Pooch, we even discover that Meg's real father is a guy named Stan Thompson. Needless to say, this kind of behavior has only contributed to her and Peter's toxic relationship.
Ooh, shiny red ball.
Peter, watch out!
Brain tumor. Marriage can be tough. Sometimes it can be so tough it causes turmoil both mentally and physically. Peter and Lois's marriage is no exception, but this particular case may take the cake. Turns out at one point Lois had a brain tumor, and that tumor was caused by none other than Peter himself. In the season 4 episode, Petorted, Peter decided to find out if he's a genius by taking the MacArthur Fellows program. Turns out he's the exact opposite and ends up performing so badly that he's declared mentally handicapped. Naturally, Peter takes full advantage of the situation, using his disability as an excuse to see how much he can get away with. In the process, he ends up injuring Lois by drenching her with boiling oil and sending her to the hospital. In one of the episode's brief throwaway gags, Brian asks Lois if being married to Peter causes her any stress. She admits that it doesn't because she represses those negative feelings, which in turn appears to be causing a tumor in her brain. So not only can Peter be inconsiderate and thoughtless, he's also actively contributing to his wife's deteriorating health. The sure signs of a healthy relationship, right? Right? Someone call for help.
I had a great time today at the museum. You were the most beautiful woman there.
Peter's cardboard cutout fling. While Lois has a reputation for being promiscuous and cheating on Peter multiple times, Peter has had his fair share of discrepancies as well. This one is particularly disturbing. In the season 2 episode, Family Goy, the Drunken Clams bartender Horace reveals to Peter that he has a cardboard cutout of Kathy Ireland. Horace plans on throwing it away, but Peter falls in love with it and decides to take it home with him instead. He begins to have an affair with the item, even going so far as to ask Lois for a divorce. When Peter reveals the cutout to his kids, he introduces it as their new mom. Chris ends up taking the cutout to his room, and when Peter finds out, he angrily shakes it until the head falls off. He buries it in the backyard, and they never speak of it again. If there was an award for a moment Lois should have left Peter, this would be a shoo-in. What's shocking is that despite knowing about the so-called affair and calling Peter an idiot, Lois still ends up forgiving him and staying with him. Because nothing is more attractive than a husband who has relationships with cardboard.
Get me out! These water wings didn't help at all!
Phew, that was pretty rough, right, Family Guy fans? But we made it through together. Are there any other disturbing facts about Peter and Lois's marriage that we might have missed? Let us know in the comments below. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to Screen Rant for more great videos. Thanks for watching.